on our facilities plan, and I know he's provided you with a couple of timelines, but I just wanted him to real briefly get you up to date on where we're at with the University Student Center and the Flex Tech building. So, Tim?
Good afternoon. Hope you can hear me. As Dr. Schaefer indicated, in your package you should have two timelines, and that's all, 2 pages, and that's all they are, is the timeline for the University Student Center and the one for the Flex Tech.
Right.
And what I tried to do is on the right-hand side is the original schedule that was published in our Building Forward plan, that gray book that many of you might remember seeing. This thing. That's the original plan that we had. And then on the left-hand side for both buildings is where we are, what we've accomplished. And just quickly on the University Student Center building, we've done the level 1 update. We've submitted that to the state. The state has actually come up with a schedule for completing the level 2. And the first thing on that schedule was to receive architect engineer proposals, which we did on Wednesday. And we got 5 proposals. We'll have to review those, and they want our input. They want about 3 representatives from the school to help review those proposals. And then we go into interviews and hope to have somebody on board by about the end of February, and we should be ready to go, have it complete by June. So that's basically on schedule. The Flex Tech, the second page, we did our planning over the summer, submitted our initiated the planning, and we will complete the level 1 by the end of the month with Pappas Associates. And then we'll finish the level 2 in June and submit to the commission. So both of those are pretty much on schedule. If there's any questions?
Do you have any questions?
No.
For Tim about these 2 projects? I'd say the big picture is we're on schedule and they're keeping them going, so we certainly appreciate that, Tim.
Well done, Tim.
And then are there any other updates that you want to share with the board on the Building Forward plan? The conversation about wayfinding came up earlier today, and I know we've got a variety of things going on underneath that campus facelift, and so I don't know if you just want to touch briefly on where we're at with some of those.
We can talk a little bit about that. As Dr. Schaefer mentioned, on the back part of that Building Forward, there was about 5 things that we wanted to do, which was building facade renovations, campus lighting, wayfinding, signage, improving the landscaping and pedestrian spaces, and the campus gateways. The building facade renovations, we've done some work with that. We're still trying to get a handle on where we want to do some of this improvement, which we hope to get a handle on really quickly because we want to do that work this summer. The campus lighting, I don't know if you've noticed it and been out here at night, but some of it's up, probably about a quarter of it, a third of it, and it's pretty good, at least in my opinion. It's providing quite a bit of light. Those are LED, high-efficiency fixtures, and they're quite a bit taller, of course, than the old lollipop things that we have, and it provides quite a bit more light. We're, like I said, probably about a third through that. The wayfinding signage, we're going to go out with an RFP to get a consultant to help us with determining what we need to do and how we want to do it. We have a draft of the RFP. It is not yet on the street. We need to get that going here pretty quickly this year. Landscaping, we haven't done too much with. We're trying to combine some of that with the campus gateways. We have hired Sally Means, who helped us with the 3rd floor of Health Science building, to help us with the gateways. Trying to tie in that stonework if we can is one of the thoughts that we had first. But that's actually ongoing, and she's had a meeting with us, and she's trying to get another meeting like next week with us to toss some ideas around with us.
Carol, I have a quick question. Tim, the lollipops, I hear about those. When are all the lollipops going to be gone, do you think?
They'll go down as we put the new ones up. Obviously, we need to keep the campus lit until we get the new ones in place, so as the new ones go up, we'll take the old ones down, but until we get the new ones up, they're going to stay up.
Can you give me kind of a time frame when you think it'll all be done? A year, 2 years, something like that?
The first phase is about $500,000, and that'll probably take us through this summer. Then we've got to find some more money to continue, and that probably does, I don't know, maybe a little less than half of the campus. But that it's going to stop because the $500,000 runs out.
What will happen to the old lights?
We're just taking them down, disposing of them. taking the
They
curves and
have no
everything out.
value?
Pardon me?
They have no value?
No, some of them, some of the new ones out, or the old ones out here are mercury vapor. We just got to dispose of them. Nobody uses them. They're of no value.
So, Carol, can I just follow up then quick? So Tim, what you're saying is it kind of depends on the money when it'll all be done? Is that what you're telling me?
Totally from the whole campus, yes. We have a project right now that does about 5 different areas, and that should be done summer timeframe. But then that's the 500,000 we had set aside. To
Yeah, and then
continue on, we'll have to find some more
Yeah.
money.
So then by the end of summer, that should be about half done,
Pretty much, a little less than half.
and a little less than half, and then we just got to wait for the money.
Until we find some more
All right.
money, we can continue, and we'll do the same thing, it's just funding it.
All right, thanks.
Where do we find money?
Well, this money, yeah, I asked the president. This particular funding came from that security threat assessment money.
Okay.
Was a special pot that Carol and the president had set aside for a number of things, including lighting.
Okay. Yes, Ed?
I guess you could hear me without that being on. Tim, I know you have absolutely nothing on your plate, so when I bring this up, don't throw anything at me. It's going to come up again and again as we move forward. It was on a discussion somewhat on the building forward plan. It would be nice if maybe we could get ASG and, some employee groups to work together and start working on something that might deal with parking over the long term. I'm not saying build or do anything now, but some folks who look at that internally here, not architects and stuff, but say, what is it that they really expect or think can be done? And-
Parking?
Yeah,
Okay.
with parking. It's just something that it's part of the, where do you go here, where do you go and park? There's times, as you know, on campus, there's other times when you can find a place anywhere you want, but, where could we look down the road to take care of, and I assume we will have more growth. I know we're kind of leveling off now, but that's not going to hold all along. We're going to expand, and I think we need to be looking ahead to that.
We have done a couple things. We've looked at a couple different places, as you might remember. We looked at one down here by the residence hall that didn't pan out because we thought we'd build a residence hall there. There wasn't any sense in building something to tear down quite soon afterwards. Any of the projects that we're doing, this University Student Center, for instance, there will have to be additional parking, including in that project, because we're going to use some parking space as it is to build that building. So we're going to have to put something in that project, put parking somewhere else. The master plan shows most of it going on the north side of the North Loop Road.
Yeah, I guess I'm looking for not just physical space where parking is, but a discussion of the idea, are there some things we could do to mitigate the challenge that some people face in parking some distance away from buildings when the weather is not good? And I don't want to throw out and say, well, we'll use a trolley, we'll use a go-kart or whatever, but, I think it would be good to have that discussion now and not wait till we really bump into it terribly hard down the road.
We could probably have that discussion. I don't know that we've thought of anything special to have a committee together or a group or ad hoc type thing to look at that. We could probably put it on the plate and see what we want to do.
Are there any other questions?
If not, we'll keep Tim up there, and I'm actually going to ask Stan Torvik probably to join him up there onto the next update, and we gave you a slight prelude to this at a study session here back in November. This has been one of those things where after working with industry and the community, we felt good and also strapped, feel good about the focus of your building forward plan on the Flex Tech building as a priority, because there's a need for space that's really designed for educational opportunities associated with some of the emerging industries that we have in the industrial technology, energy fields, and so on and so forth. The bad news maybe is that there are demands that are coming up right now for for workers trained in welding and process engineering that we don't have the space to address, and they have the needs right now, and I don't think they're going to be able to wait until we have a Flex Tech building. In fact, I have a letter here from Joan Evans, the director of Wyoming Workforce Services, basically saying, we really support and encourage you to get a process engineering program up and running. We have industries here in southeast Wyoming across the state that need to do that. As Doug Cook sort of outlined for you, the specific requests and the needs for a welding program and welding graduates, more specifically, and process engineering for current and future employees of our refineries and other employers, this is something that we simply want to try to get moving as soon as possible. So the conversation today is about the facilities associated with these programs. We are also working and moving the curriculum through the approval processes and the development process for welding and process engineering. You will see those as it moves through that process. What we're talking today is about the facilities. Stan and Tim and others have identified a stopgap solution that we feel is relatively affordable and would allow us to add space to the CTE building in a relatively affordable way that would essentially house welding and process engineering until we have the Flex Tech building on campus. And what you have before you is a feasibility study that actually has some design elements, some architectural elements, and some costing elements before you. What we would like to do is actually go out and put a design-build proposal on the streets to have a firm come in and essentially expand our CTE building as outlined within this feasibility study. And that's really what we're here to talk about today, is doing this as a stopgap measure. And so I'll turn it over maybe to you two, and you can kind of fill in the gaps where I've missed and talk a little bit about the specific proposal here. And then really what we want to do is hear the questions from the board.
I guess I can try and explain the facility portion of this thing, and then maybe Stan can add some stuff about the programming. As Dr. Schaefer mentioned, in the proposal you have, we asked Tobin Associates to do a quick feasibility study. First of all, is it feasible to do what we thought we could do, or what we want to do, and can we do it for a reasonable price? And essentially what we want to do in the northeast corner of welding, or excuse me, CT, go back to construction trade, Career and Technology Building, there's a parking area, and there's two walls existing. And what the idea is to fill in the outside walls with a freestanding structure. It'll have to be a structural steel freestanding, because you can't attach to the building because of the structural problems with it. But it would be attached to the building physically, but it would be a standalone structure of about 2,000 square feet. And it's feasible to, as the report shows, that we could do that with the existing, pretty much with the existing electrical load in the Career and Technology Building, and as well as the heating system in the Career and Technology Building. The exhaust systems for the welding booths themselves, or the welding stations, would be portable. They're a standalone thing with the 12 booths themselves, so you wouldn't need any sort of big HVAC exhaust system for that little addition. Like I said, we tie it in to the existing structure. What we probably do is move the existing overhead door out to the outside and put a firewall, if we will, 2-hour firewall between the welding area and the wind area. And that's mainly for a code point of view, so we don't have to worry about fire sprinkler systems and make it more expensive. We've run that by the code officials at the county, and they have blessed it so far. They haven't done a thorough review, but they've allowed us to proceed along this line of design. Seems to me I was going to tell you something else I can't remember. Now, as Dr. Schaefer said, we need, if we want to get this going by, I think it's August timeframe, we need to get going to be able to design and build this thing in the time for, and outfit it for an August class start.
Brenda?
Thanks, Carol. Do we run into any problems with Capital Construction Committee or WCCC or anything like that in just doing this?
No, it's a good question. And Carol, you're still on the phone, but anything under $1 million, I believe, we have the ability to do on our campus without commission approval or endorsement. Is that right, Carol, Tim?
I think that's right.
It's under $100,000. We'll need to take it to the commission, but we do not need to take it to the legislature.
Okay, so this project will have to go to the commission for approval,
Correct,
after trustee approval.
correct.
Ah, thanks, Carol.
So yes, it will have to go to,
Not the legislature.
not the legislature at this threshold. I think the $1 million number must be for legislative authority then, as well. The funding for this, right now, what we're looking at with, would be to utilize the fund balance essentially associated with the 1 mil funds to fund the $350,000 or so associated with this project. Part of that is the actual, the realized revenue from our 1 mil levy, as well as the funds that we've carried over year for year. I believe it's an appropriate use of those funds, especially with your desire to use the 1 mil's monies more strategically for facilities and planning and those types of things. But it's a big chunk of money, and we've had numerous conversations on campus with, do you sink $300,000 or more into a facility project, knowing that we're going to be raising money for a Flex Tech building, knowing that we have these other projects, knowing that there's emerging projects for campus renovations that I'll talk about here in a second. Is this really what we need to be doing or should be doing? And we've kind of grappled with that, and I think ultimately with the push that we've had from our employers and from the state to accommodate these programs, if we want to do these programs and meet those needs, we need to have space to do it. This is a relatively affordable and useful solution to that process, but it's a significant amount of money.
Carol.
Kevin?
Well, with that having been said, those are some of the topics I was going to broach here. First of all, what plans would we have for reusing this space? It wouldn't be space that we just build and then tear down again.
No.
So, specific plans for reuse.
Additional space for the wind technology program, and more specifically, additional space for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. We're crammed into one lone classroom with or lab for all of our heating, ventilation, air conditioning equipment. We've had an increasing demand for things related to the IST lab as well as wind, and much of process technology will require integrated systems technology, and so we need to expand that space. We would fill it almost immediately after the Flex Tech building would come on board.
Just out of curiosity, this process technology that you're talking about, we don't have a great deal of that down here in southeastern Wyoming. That's mostly central Wyoming, Powder River Basin, southwestern Wyoming. Why aren't these programs being proposed in Casper and at Western?
Excellent question. We have 5 refineries in the state, and none of them currently are utilizing any of the training programs available through any of the community colleges. They have had a great deal of difficulty recruiting new employees to operate their plants. And as a result of young and inexperienced workers, they've experienced a terrible safety record. And this has come to the attention of all of the state officials. And as a result of that, there's now an increased push for training programs for entry-level workers for all of the refineries. Our refinery alone, Holly Frontier, has indicated a need for 15-plus new workers every year coming out of a program, should we develop it. We have concentrated on our service area. I'm not entirely sure what the other colleges are doing to address the refineries that are located in their area. But we've been working extensively with Holly Frontier, and they have 2 hiring sessions a year at this point in time, and they would become employees of Holly Frontier, and they would then be out here full-time for a period of time for initial training and then ongoing training following that.
So there is really no competing programs at any other community colleges at the time.
There are not.
Now, the welding program, though, how many students are we really expecting that welding program would draw in?
Another great question. We've been working closely with LEADS as well as the Department of Workforce Services, and we've identified a minimum of 30 new welders per year would find employment in our immediate region if we were able to provide them.
So let me ask you then, with regard to the welding, 30 students a year in a welding program doesn't sound like a lot to me, so why wouldn't we make use, until we get the Flex Tech building done, why wouldn't we make use of Eastern?
They don't have the capacity for those kind of numbers. Plus, when I say 30, this is a 2-year program, so there would be double that number in the system until they graduated.
Okay.
And for clarification, Stan, with Eastern, because the conversation about Eastern has come up, their primary delivery mechanism for welding is their trailer system, is that correct? And you've seen it on campus here, we've utilized it, we've helped bring them here when they've partnered with Climb Wyoming and things like that. And if I'm correct in understanding, what we've heard from employers is that level of training and that environment is unique, and it's a nice start, but this is not the type of individual they're looking for coming out of these programs.
So you're saying that Eastern's program is based on a trailer?
No, part of it.
Part of it is, okay. That's not the whole thing, though.
Eastern does not think we're competing with them. They do not have the capacity to deal with the numbers that we're looking at.
But what I'm asking is, and this is just spending a bunch of money temporarily until we get the Flex Tech building done, maybe it would make use of some other facility that's already available. That's all I'm asking about.
Yeah, and it's a good question. So we've been having conversations, and since you had that question come up after Doug's presentation, I've received phone calls from people who say, I've got this building and I've got this building, and it's interesting what types of facilities are out there. But every time we take a look at that and you actually drill in, to either have the owner of the facility do the renovations to accommodate these programs and then lease it back to us, or for us to invest in those, they all are going to exceed $300,000. I mean, it's just cheaper for us to just do it on our campus, to be honest with you.
So then let me ask about this building once again. It's not really going to be attached to the other building, but it's just going to butt right up against it. It's going to look like an integrated building.
It'll be integrated. I mean, it'll be physically attached to it. You just can't use the walls for the structure.
It has the same, basically it has the same lifetime. It can just stay there then
Right.
until the other building
We'll
is...
take the fascia off the existing one, put it on the outside to make it look like it blends with the building.
Yeah.
It won't be concrete twin T's structure. It'll be stucco or something.
Sure.
But it'll be a standalone because structurally can't attach it to the other building, but you can attach it physically.
But it will be as durable and as structurally sound as the other building, and
We'll put the footings in, spread footings and the whole thing for
Yeah.
the structure itself.
Brenda?
If we're doing a lot of this to support the work of Holly Frontier, do you think Holly Frontier would want to help pay for any of it?
We have not asked them about the structure. They are going to provide much of the equipment necessary for all of the training program that's going to result from this.
Thanks, Brenda. I did have a couple of questions. How much can a welder make, and how much can a process technologist make when they graduate from LCCC?
I don't have a real good figure for you for that. Welders, anywhere from $25 an hour up, depending on their skill set and the number of years of experience and the kind of welding they're doing. Pipeline welding pays considerably more than the MIG or TIG welding. So it depends on their level and their capability.
And can they learn both of those skills here
They
through our
can.
program?
Yes.
Okay.
But many employers look at how do I want to put this? The more experience you have, the better you are at it, and the better you are, the higher the quality of the weld, the more you will command in the way of a salary. Process technology, I don't have a good figure for that. Vastly in excess of the minimum wage. But it's more of a career ladder, because the way we've been talking with the refineries collectively is they would receive initial training here, go to work for one of the refineries, and at the same time continue their education so that they would receive a degree in process technology, at which point their pay would increase depending upon the level of their expertise as they come out of various phases of this program. In other words, it's a step-in, step-out program where they can learn sufficient for a basic entry-level position and then continue their education and be promoted within their system. I don't know if I'm answering that question very well.
I just want to make sure that once our students graduate, they can earn a very good cost of living. I mean, I want them to be able to go to work and support themselves and their families, and otherwise, why come to a community college to get a degree?
These are excellent positions that generally last for a career, and usually they don't move from one location to another. What's happening to the refineries collectively is their workforce is aging out. They're in the process of retiring out, and they're having greater and greater difficulty finding skilled workers to replace them.
Well, my trouble a little bit with welding is I know that we had a welding program here because I actually went through part of it. And then we let it go away. I guess we didn't need as many welders at that time, and now we're reinstituting welding.
There was a period of time when the enrollment declined to virtually none here. This was before I was involved in any of this, and so after several years of non-use, the facility was repurposed.
Right.
We now have a new set of players, i.e. the oil play that's primarily just across the border in southern Colorado at the moment, but also the Bakken up in Montana and North Dakota. They cannot find facilities, employers, and housing up there. So a couple of these companies are going to locate here, do their fabrication here, and transport them in pieces up north. And so part of it's being driven by the oil play in the larger region as well as locally.
Did you have something else? Oh.
Go ahead.
Butch.
Dan, I'm just going to ask you a question. Has there been any contact with Marcus Smith? Would that be a full learning or even EPRW and co-classification kind of medicine board?
We have not contacted either of those. I was unaware that they were players in this potential. We've just talked to the local employers around here.
I know the EPRW one is co-classification
Okay.
plant, and I think they're pretty close to putting that together, but that's a 2,000 employee workforce. That is all welders.
And I'm going to guess process technology will play a role once it's operational as well.
That
Yes.
would be not cement, but cement.
Right, right.
Might be interested in focusing on.
I think there's a long, long-term future for both of these programs.
Good to hear.
Carol, I was just going to say, according, using the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the median hourly wage for an entry-level welder, this is nationally, and it's assuming, again, that we're close to the national average, mean hourly wages or average wage is $18 an hour. Annual wage means 37 or almost 38,000, so that's entry level. When you get to pipe welding certification, that is not considered entry level, and that's one of the struggles with some of the welding programs right now. Getting them just to even sit for their entry level American Welding Society qualification exam is one thing, getting them to actually be certified pipe welders is another, and so, I think there's considerable opportunity out there for people to make very good wages as a welder and in their refineries.
Thank you. Yes.
I just happened to be, had a friend who had sent me an article regarding a very similar kind of situation in Minnesota, and I find it quite interesting that many of the issues we're dealing with were addressed in that article, and I will share with anybody who wishes the information on that so you can access it. What I also found interesting was the blog following that article. Tremendous number of folks from various different areas that had comments, and so I happen to know a fellow who's worked in mining for years and has come up you might say, the hard way. And I talked to him as a superintendent of mines, and he was out of Gillette. He's now down here and works out of Colorado. But his description of Gillette and what they were offering in the welding was quite fascinating, because he said that, they've got tremendous equipment there at the campus in Gillette, and of course the mines were a key part of that. But they chose, these are the mining companies in that area, chose not to hire, in many cases, folks from Casper, which has a good program, and he felt very solid, but their program was designed to provide certain types of welders there in terms of the oil field and for machining kind of work that they were doing. And they wouldn't hire those folks. They loved the guys coming out of, guys and gals, coming out of the Torrington program. They had their, almost without looking around the corner, they would take those folks without any consideration. And, kind of spent some time talking to him about other issues in the field. And the one thing that both the article that I mentioned and in talking with him that felt was so critical, and I would simply ask and hope you could get some of these folks to do it, the refinery in particular, to commit to internships, to commit to some kind of apprenticeship, because he said, we could get the welders, we could get them there working, but they couldn't do the job. And it wasn't anything about the program, the type of welding and what they wanted them to do, they just didn't have the skills to do that, even though the program brought them out and they tested and were certified. He said the difference is if we can get those people an apprenticeship, if we can have them class and work, makes all the difference in the world. And that was something that was also reiterated many times over in the blog following the article that I'd read. So I think we need some kind of support for this, but I would really hope industry recognizes the value of apprenticeships and we could work with them on that.
Our conversations with Holly Frontier are more in the vein of a partnership, and they want to produce a long-term stable workforce for their refinery, which is a significant number of people every year, and they are very open to what you are suggesting, Ed.
If I could ask one more question. You said Holly Frontier is looking at 15 people per year?
That is the estimate that they have been...
And that's turnover, I take it? They just
Or-
lose these
or-
people and they have to keep replacing them?
or retirements, or moving to another one of their refineries, out of state, some of them.
Yeah, I don't know where those would be, I guess. I don't know that refining
But
company.
there are 5 in the state, too.
But we've got Dyna Nobel, and I don't know.
They are part of the players as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in addition to the refineries, you've also got gas processing plants all over the place,
That's right.
at which a lot of bad accidents happen. And so that would be part of it, too. I realize that what we're discussing here today is just temporary space for this program, but I would expect by the time these programs actually come up, are we talking about board approval of these programs sometime in the future, that there's really a business plan that has a good, solid number on the number of students that are going to go through these things every year. And I'll just mention this, the IST program, its original business plan was that there'd be 250 students a year going through that, and it hasn't come anywhere near that. So I just want to see a good, solid business plan.
You will see for both of these programs
Okay.
a solid one, yes.
Any more questions?
Just as a follow-up to that, so one of the priority policies and procedures that is on the academic affairs plate for you to consider as we get it developed is your process for program development and approval. We've been sort of defaulting to what the commission has set forward. In fact, the forms you've typically seen have been the commission's forms, but you've continually asked for, and I think appropriately so, additional information as we develop those programs. We're going to be updating, and as I said, it's a priority to look at a more robust approval process that will get at many of the things you're talking about, not only the business plan, but actually grounding it in the need data, the evidence of a need, whether it's, or if it's a transfer program, the articulation partnerships that exist in what we're doing, numbers of students, resources required, and all those types of things. So we'll be bringing you better information with new programs in the future.
Well, this just fits in with, we were talking about how do you justify the expenditure of this money and then turn around and build a Flex Tech building with a good business plan to show that this is going to go on year after year after year. That becomes a non-issue at that point.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree, and I mean, that's one of the things, it's both a struggle to have to do this now, but it's also reaffirming in the fact that we believe we can occupy this space with students and with programs, and it just further illustrates the need for that Flex Tech building, because we would occupy that as well, and there's truly needs and opportunities there that exist for it. So in many ways, it's bad timing, but, you know, it really helps us to feel more affirmed in our decision to move forward with the Flex Tech building as a priority.
Thank you. Now we have C, other projects.
Great, thanks, Carol. Thanks for keeping it along. Thank you both. So you will most likely see, if you have comments about this will be on your agenda for the business meeting at the end of the month. If you have comments, questions, thoughts, additions, things that are missing, please let us know, and we'll adopt the proposal, and then I'll have a formal recommendation for you as well. Item C, I just thought it would be worthwhile updating you on some of the other conversations and things that are going on campus regarding facilities. So our Building Forward plan and the, in many ways, the campus master plan, we're really looking at new facilities. Yes, there's some campus facelift type of activities, but really what we're talking about there is new facilities. As we've been working through reorganization, as we've brought new leadership on board, as we're talking about the future of LCCC, we're finding that there is considerable need for campus renovation and projects on campus that don't necessarily fall underneath new construction. Some may apply for major maintenance, some may not, but there's some things that we're really starting to pull together in almost a renovation plan for the facilities, and I thought it would just be worthwhile to bring you up to speed on some of those, because down the road, they may hit your plate, depending on if they develop to the point that we want to go out and actually do some of these things. So let me walk through a few of them. As Judy has hit the ground running, one of the things that she is, as I told you earlier, said is, we've got to do something with the current space for student services. It's great, the new University Student Center will do wonders with a one-stop shop for student services. We can't wait 4 years to do that stuff now. We need to be serving our students better right now, and to do that, it's going to require some space changes. That's in one part been stimulating some conversations about how we start moving people around. Then the other piece, which is dealing with the reorganization and how we're starting to realign services and programs, especially some of those that were associated with the academic area, now moving into perhaps under the idea of the Learning Commons, which, as you recall, was in your master plan and was brought up in the past. It's starting to ripple to the point that we need to be doing some facilities change, and so let me talk about a couple of them. As we've been trying to identify how we can create additional space in the interim for student service employees and get more into the mainstream of student traffic, we've been looking at the relationship of the current student services area, as well as the campus living and learning office, the counseling office, and also how students and student groups are utilizing those spaces, which led us to a conversation about the student lounge. Everybody's familiar with the student lounge down there. Nice kind of big gathering space right in the traffic way of everything for folks. With the little, what do we call it, the fireplace, amphitheater, and pillow pit down there.
Stop there.
We have some interesting space down there, and in some cases, having it just kind of be open and free-flowing has worked. The reality is, though, that it needs some renovation. A lot of our student groups, student government, campus activity board, I mean, they've set up shop essentially in this campus living and learning office, which might be, and I think will be, a much better place for our recruiters. By the way, our recruiters, up until Judy started, were predominantly working from off campus. We didn't even have these key admissions people on campus. Well, there's no space for them. We got them crammed in one cubicle now, right, essentially? So it also turns out that the students have been paying a fee for the campus lounge, and there's a chunk of money that they've been paying into set aside. It's almost $500,000 for the student lounge. So as we start talking about this, like, well, boy, they're paying for it. We have a need for renovation. There's some things they can do. So we're sitting down, or have we sat down with an architect already about the student lounge specifically? Once. So we will be moving. That may be one of the key domino effects. If we can actually work with the students to identify a renovation plan for that, utilize the resources that they've set aside for that may actually provide office space for the campus activity board, student government. They have those little desks out there. There's some great opportunity to do some better things with that whole area that we have funds to essentially do to some level right now that I think we need to move on. That will be that first domino. So we'll continue to work with the architect, but know that we'll most likely be coming forward with some type of plan and request for your approval to do some renovation to the student lounge area. The bookstore is another conversation. I know many of you have shared comments with me about the bookstore. I think we envision a much more robust, up-to-date bookstore of the future. When we've looked at that space and our current offerings and what's going on in the bookstore, it's led to conversations about moving more towards an e-bookstore type of model, more of a fulfillment center model, if you can think of. So right now, each year, we put in all these book orders. The books all come to campus. We throw them in there. Everybody comes by their books, and then for the next, 3 months, the bookstore's pretty well vacant. It's not an ideal traffic location, and you have all these shelves. Technologies of such now where we can actually take more of the Amazon approach and actually look at doing more of a fulfillment, where we can say, here are the books, here's what's available. Many of our students are buying them online anyways. Why not have more of a fulfillment area? And so that has led us to conversations about book fulfillment kiosks that maybe tie into our signage and all those things. The long and short of it is that we're starting to get some movement that would suggest we may vacate that bookstore, use an interim measure of a fulfillment center and more of an e-book store until we have the new University Student Center, where we can have more of a new age bookstore that has soft goods, retail services, more of the general types of services and things that you would find in a campus bookstore, software, hardware, all of that good stuff. So there may be changes to the bookstore setting and what we're doing in there that may help meet some of the immediate student services needs as well. And then there's one that I'm actually fairly excited about. I don't know how we were going to make it all happen, but I think some of you who have been on the board are aware of the conversation around a learning commons and the library here on campus. So higher education libraries have changed significantly. If anybody's been over to the University of Wyoming Library, 4 levels, and it's just an interesting space. Libraries are really changing from a collection of hard resources, books, periodicals, and things like that, to a place where students can learn how to access all kinds of information. Collections continue to decrease and decrease and decrease, and the utilization of electronic reserves increase and increase and increase as we move into this digital age. At the same time, libraries are starting to find their role really in strengthening their educational component. So in higher education, your librarians are typically faculty, and they have an educational component. Well, we have great movement already in that with the Writing Center now being located within the library, and I think the conversation historically here has been to start creating more of a learning commons there. Well, with our campus reorganization, we have already moved towards taking the tutoring center, academic success area, and possibly the exam center. And we've talked about even math labs and things like that, and locating those as part of a learning commons within the library. We're working on a proposal right now for a Center for Teaching and Learning that will help develop our faculty and provide an opportunity for faculty interaction, discourse, and development. Another good opportunity for the learning commons. Well, so all these great things are starting to percolate and come forward. It's wonderful. We got no place to put them to do that. We have a library that could use some significant renovation. There is a plan in our campus master plan for some expansion, but certainly some renovation of that space. We have various things that are happening in the foundation that might suggest we have some funds available. As many of you know, we're part of a will of a patron that brought $500,000. We haven't seen the money yet, but as we go through the probate process, we'll bring $500,000 to the campus. $250 of that is earmarked for the library. Well, there's a good jump start on a construction project there, and there's nothing to suggest that the other $250 couldn't go towards that as well. We have some other resources identified in the foundation, and I might even go as far to suggest that this may be an arguably good project to bring to you to say we could utilize some of our fund balance, which is the monies that we build up as a reserve. Sorry, not fund balance, Carol, but our reserve account. As you remember, we had to get it to that below that 8% here. We may want to tap into that to do this project because it's pretty darn exciting. But it's early stages. We haven't even sat down with the architect yet. But there's some pretty neat things that could come as a result of this. So this is just really my attempt to make sure you're informed that there are a lot of these conversations going on, and so you're not caught blindside when you hear about, well, we might be renovating this, or we might want to be, doing something in the library, or this might be happening. As the campus evolves, there are going to be needs for some renovations of existing space, and I want to make sure you know that we're kind of working on these things now, and they may hit your desk before you know it. So with that, Carol, I'll stop and answer any questions if I can.
Questions? Brenda?
It's not really a question, it's a comment. And I just want to say bravo to this. That space has always bothered me down there, just that hall, that narrow hallway where, the library comes off of there and the tutoring center comes off of there. I would love to put in a plug of expanding the theater into that, into the student lounge area, but Troy and I both directed in the theater, so we know what that's like. But anyway, I think this is wonderful. So thank you for thinking about it, and I'm envisioning more of an open space where, with more kiosk kind of things and more electronic book access and that type of stuff, instead of a narrow hallway and shelves and all of that older stuff, so. And if you want any advice on moving the theater wall a little bit more into the student lounge section, just let me know.
She may be a good trustee representative for your design committees to do that. Yeah, there's no shortage of ideas as we open up these doors, and in fact, the students, with the exuberance of millions of teenagers, came forward with all kinds of wonderful ideas. Huge price tags, but wonderful, wonderful ideas. So it is actually kind of exciting as a campus to be able to think about the potential. And, lo and behold, when you actually start digging into it, there's resources available. These things aren't impossible to do. It's just figuring out how we actually tap into all these little pieces and make them work. So we're pretty excited about it. But and hopefully you'll share our excitement. But I just wanted to make sure we didn't catch you off guard when you hear, what are they doing down there? I didn't know anything about that.
I love the excitement. I think that's what we need at this college. I think we need to go forward with a lot of excitement and a lot of plans and building plans, and I really want to thank you for that. I think we need to take a walkabout, because there are some people sitting here that haven't seen all these areas, and so maybe at the next board meeting, we'll take a 15-minute walk around the campus and look. Okay, we'll plan to do that. And if there are no more questions, we'll move on to student housing survey results.
Wonderful. I saw Ann. Oh, good. She's already here. She's going to come up to the podium. Ann has done some wonderful work in taking this survey that we did of our students and putting it together into an analysis. And I've asked her to sort of share the executive summary, the overall structure of the survey, and some general thoughts or recommendations on it. So, Ann, if you would.
Okay. First of all, I want to make sure everybody had the revised version that Vicki sent out yesterday. I'll be referring to that one. We got together with a group of student services personnel, Alan Ohashi from the Downtown Development Authority, correct me if I'm wrong on that, and just to kind of hash out what we wanted to ask, how we're going to go about this. And we went with, we designed a survey pulled from different sources to kind of look at, first of all, are students interested in this? Is there enough interest to go forward? And then, as long as we were doing a survey, to see if we could get some information about what might go into a design if we are going forward on that. We did it kind of a two-pronged approach to get responses. We sent an email invitation to all students who were registered in a Cheyenne campus course. If they were exclusively at an outreach center or exclusively online, they were not included. And then the campus living and learning personnel and folks from the residence hall also set up tables in the student lounge and laptops and just had people come in and do it. Because of the nature of the methodology, we didn't get what we call a representative sample. So I would hesitate to take this and make huge conclusions about what all of our Cheyenne campus students think. But I still think we have enough from the targeted population of students who are currently living on campus, students who are interested in housing, to provide some guidance for you as you make decisions on this. The first two results that I really want to draw your attention to are on the first page. The very first two questions side by side. We did have among the respondents a significant, back up just a little bit. When I say significant, I mean I did some statistical analysis, and this is a real difference. It's not just by chance. I just want to make sure you understood how I use that word, because I use it differently than a lot of people do. But there was a significant majority of the people who responded who were interested in off-campus housing. And of those who were interested, 95%, again, a significant majority of those who responded who were interested in that downtown option. So that says to me that one recommendation I would make to this group is, we've got enough to keep looking into this. We don't have enough to make a commitment yet. I don't think you have enough information to do that, but it's worthwhile looking at focus groups, looking into some of the results of the other questions that students were very interested in having access to grocery, for example. There's some things about what they might want in that downtown facility, to take those responses and go forward and really look at some focus groups, to dig into this and see if there's demographic things that we haven't done yet. So but that's just kind of the big picture of where we're at so far. So I'm just going to stop and see if you have any questions.
And if I could just briefly, so there are, a few things. You've gone through this, and I'm sure you've seen some things that jump out. For me, the grocery thing was interesting, how important that was. But did you tell us, Ann, the total number, the 2,800 of what, or the total number of the population roughly? Is that?
We invited, so I didn't make a note of that, sorry, about 2,800 people. We had 379 respond to that, and 288 of them were interested. So the first few items, it's only those 288 did it, so.
So although it wasn't a scientific sampling of that, it was a significant response rate in terms of
If we
the
had
population.
done it more scientifically, we had had the time to do that, I would have been thrilled with this response rate on basically a mailed survey. So it's not bad from that point of view.
Yeah, so good response, and what's interesting is when you look at it, while they're interested in off-campus housing and interested in the downtown model, just on page 2, in terms of billing and relationship, they really want the campus to take care of it for them. They don't want just access to the apartments, and then they have to figure out how they do individualized billing, which is important for the next phase. If we say, yeah, this looks promising, now let's do the second part of what we said we would intend to do when we sign that letter of intent, which is try to identify what the management relationship would be with the Heinz Capital Corps or whoever's managing the Heinz project. I mean, the students, if they're interested in what they're telling us initially is we want you to take care of those details with it, which is more of a traditional campus housing type of arrangement where it's all inclusive there. So the rest of it, I thought was pretty interesting. As I told Carol, and she kind of smiled, there was lots of comments about wanting a pet, not necessarily a big pet, but a goldfish would be good.
Well, they said don't count
No, more than a
Oh, don't call them goldfish.
Don't count those.
But some interesting pieces there, and, and a couple of other things that we know are still there. They have concerns about parking and transportation. They're the same things that we've said will have to be resolved before we would ever move forward into a formalized arrangement. We simply have to have those types of things nailed down. But in general, our students said, yeah, this looks pretty darn promising. So with that, Ann's here to answer any specific questions about the survey, if you have those, and then after you're done with questions, I may sort of suggest some next steps of what we'll be doing.
Questions? Ed?
Do you have a sense from this, and it wouldn't come from this survey, but your awareness of others, is this a competitive price you're talking about? I noticed some of them said, $700 would be reasonable. Do we have any feel for how this price fits into the current market or prospective market?
I do not. Judy? We kind of just came up with some price breaks and just from looking at local, but we didn't really do it very scientifically, and that would be something that we would need to pursue is, okay, really, let's get some real comparison information. This was more to see where students were at now, to see what they might be willing to do in the future.
Jim Weaver, would you have any information about that?
I think it's within the market rates. It depends on the amenities and things like that, which we haven't really finalized, but I think it's within market rates.
Thank you.
One other thing, and again, it doesn't show up in here other than the fact that it's important to them, not only parking, but I noticed they wanted diesel parking.
I noticed.
Interesting perspective, but I guess what thoughts do we have, or how do we attack this idea in terms of there has to be the issue of transportation and parking?
I think this would be one thing that focus groups would help us drill into, as particularly the open-ended responses where we get some ideas about what those students were thinking. We can use those to formulate specific questions to throw out for discussion with the students at those groups to see what they might say. When they say good parking, what do they mean? Do they mean curbside parking for everybody? Do they mean, a 2-minute walk? To get some better handle on what exactly they mean on those things.